Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic This Week in WordPress and SaaS. This is episode 673. We've got a great guest. I've got a semi-new co-host, but he's well known to the tribe. And it should be a great show. Our guest is Josh Hall, and my co-host this week, and might be in the coming weeks as well, is the only Andrew Palmer. I'm going to let Josh quickly introduce himself. So, Josh, can you quickly introduce yourself to the tribe?
Sure thing. It's great to be here with you guys on the show. I'm Josh. I am a web design coach. So I help web design freelancers essentially build their dream web design business, whatever that looks like. If they want to have a small team, or they just want to be a solopreneur, or if they want to scale, I can help them out with that as well. So that's what I'm all about nowadays as a web design coach.
That's great. And I've got my new co-host. Well, Stephen's going to be coming back. I will be telling you more tribes soon. Andrew, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Andrew Palmer from Bertha.ai and WPPluginsPlus.com, and I've been a co-host on this part of the show before, but I normally appear on the WP-Tonic Friday show. But I'm pleased to be here, and it's a long time I've not seen or spoken with Josh, so it's really good to see him. Cool.
I thought that's why Andrew was here. He just wanted to chat with me again. I thought that's what the case was.
That's true. It's true.
Oh, well, there we go. Before we go into this great interview, we've got a message from one of my major sponsors. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. And if you, Castos has given the tribe a great special offer, plus some of the other sponsors, plus some great recommendations of plugins and services that have all been checked over by myself and the panel. To get all that, all you have to do is to go to WP-Tonic/recommendations, and you find all the goodies there. So, Josh, let's go straight into it. So, give us some background, because you run a successful web design agency for a number of years. How did you get into the crazy world, as I classify it, as web design and online development? How did you get into it, Josh?
Yeah, I thought I was kind of a black sheep. I thought it was very weird how I got into web design, but apparently it's pretty normal. I started out as a musician. I was a drummer in a rock band, and I was actually a cabinet maker for a tour bus customizing shop. And
I'm sorry, Josh, I have to interrupt you there. You said
sure.
you were a musician, and then you said you were a drummer in the same breath. What happened? Sorry.
Yeah, oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I'm a drummer, musician, and a Divi guy. So I'm checking all the boxes here. Yeah, we're the most important drummers. Anywho, yeah, so I was a drummer in a rock band. We were traveling around, and I was a cabinet maker. Long story short, I got laid off with my cabinet making job in 2009. And I always liked art, and I always enjoyed drawing. And I decided, since I was also in the band, that I would dive into Photoshop. And then I started designing our t-shirts, our CD artwork, all of our merchandise. And then I'll never forget, we were playing at a festival, and somebody came up to us and said they loved our artwork, and they asked who did it. And I said, I do. And then they asked, how much would you charge to do ours? So it was like the light bulb went off, and that was my first big light bulb moment that said, wow, I could actually do design and get paid for it and actually do something I like doing. So that's what got me into design. And then I worked my way into web design and graphic design at the same time. Then eventually web design just took over for me.
That's
pretty cool. I think that story is great. Cabinet maker, you've got to have a certain skill set and a delicacy, along with some brute force as well. Cabinet making is incredibly hard work. I get that, but you've got the design. You have the design skills, and you turn those into merchandising for your band. We've got a friend of the show, Vito Peleg, who's in a rock band. It seems to be quite common. Musicians have gone into the web design world,
and that's why I said I really felt like it was an awkward and weird path. But come to find out, a decade later, a lot of really professional web designers and awesome creatives come from a musician background or a completely different industry.
Yeah, it's a creative thing. So what I want to know, and this isn't one of the questions on there because I didn't know you were a cabinet maker before today, to be honest. I've read your blogs and everything. I didn't really focus on that bit. And the transition from design to web, do you think that helped you, that you had a creative gene in your body so that you could actually visualize what you were building whilst you were building it, if you know what I mean?
Definitely. I think my experience being a cabinet maker and being a musician helped me dramatically in web design, because it is something that's creative that you see, but you also have to be really good at planning it. And I think this is where a lot of creatives struggle, is they can think about the design and stuff and they can do it, but when it comes to strategy and SEO and content and all the other aspects of web design, a lot of creatives struggle with that end of things that I've found, which is one reason I'm really passionate about helping people with those other aspects as well. So yeah, I think it's a great point, Andrew. I think being a cabinet maker taught me it also taught me about deadlines. Like, I had to build this cabinet by Friday. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You got to get it done. So I think both of my previous life experiences helped me in web design for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, that's great. So maybe you can give the tribe a couple insights, because you run your agency for quite a while and it was very successful. What are one or two insights that you wish somebody had told you when you were starting off your agency that would have helped you a lot if you had known, somebody had told them to you?
I think I felt pressure to do what everyone else was doing early on, and I struggled with imposter syndrome majorly early on. And I know every web designer does, but I had colleagues in my local area. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, which is a very, very underrated city in the States as far as our economy. I mean, I kind of call us the little Austin, because we have a lot of technology companies bustling downtown. And I say that to say I had some colleagues who had offices downtown and had growing digital agencies. And I felt like I should do that. I felt like I should have an office downtown. Later on, as I got going in my career, I became more myself, and I realized I actually don't want that. I didn't want overhead. I didn't want a team of 12 people. All I wanted was freedom to work from home and to do my projects and to scale and grow at the pace that I felt comfortable with. So if I could go, and it took me a few years to get to that point to understand that. So I really became the agency that I wanted about 6 years into my business, which I didn't scale a huge agency. It was just a small team. It was me and a few subcontractors, but that was perfect. That's exactly the pace of life that was good for me and for my clients. And that's how I ended up growing an online community. And then happy to talk about how I segued into teaching from there as well.
So a quick follow-through question before the next question. So I think I got two things from that. First of all, be mindful of your fixed costs. Having office and having 12 people, blah, blah, all sounds good. But in the end, that's just fixed cost and will result in sleepless nights. And second, you've got to really know what you're looking to do and find your own path to some extent, not follow other people. Would I be right about that?
That's a perfect way to sum up that little segment. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, over to you, Andrew.
I mean, so what do you think? You've obviously transitioned from agency. I mean, I'm going to ask you, and don't answer yet, but I'm going to ask you whether you've actually retained some clients. What do you think, while you had your agency and while you were transitioning into being the online tutor and guide and mentor and all that kind of stuff for your current audience, what do you think the hardest couple of lessons were, both in your agency and while you were transitioning into really what you're doing now, which is a very transparent, honest, teaching kind of situation that you're in? You announce how much you earn. I saw on a podcast the other day, which was amazing. Lots of these gurus out there, they say, yeah, earn a 6-figure income. You actually tell us what those 6 figures are. Normally it's between you and the tax man. But so what do you think the hardest lessons are, and why did you decide to really be quite as transparent as you are?
Well, I think so. I feel like that's kind of a 2-part question, Andrew. I think the first part, as far as the challenges of my agency and growing my small team was moving from a solopreneur to a small team. And that's very common. It's a whole different style of business when it's all you and everything's about you, to building a small team. Additionally, I really had to kind of rein myself in, because with web design, there are so many things you can do. You could do all the things. You could do the design, the development, the coding. You could do the copywriting. You could do the SEO. And then I was also doing graphic design services for a while too. So I was doing branding and logo. I mean, I had like 37 services. And then I realized I have to reel in what I'm really good at. And I think what I learned to do is I know it sounds corny and cheesy, but you do have to find your superpower, and you just need to figure out, what are you good at? What do you like doing? And what is a big need for your clients? And then just focus on that main thing, or just a few main things, and make those your primary services. So once I did that, that's what really helped me grow my business and be able to scale. Yeah. And then I started teaching. And then it's interesting, because the teaching thing came around. Actually, it's so funny that you're in this interview, Andrew, because the first product I ever sold online in the Divi community was through your marketplace, Elegant Marketplace, probably what, 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago?
Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, yeah.
Had to be 17. Yeah, I think
You were
17.
one of our first vendors. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, so I always had a knack for teaching. I always enjoyed it. I was a part of a local community high school after school program here in my local area for media students who are interested in design and stuff. And I found that I had a knack for teaching kids, but I didn't necessarily want to just work with one kid at a time. I wanted to teach at scale. So I ended up finding out that the content manager for Elegant Themes, the creators of Divi, lived here in Columbus, Ohio as well. So I just asked, Nathan. So I asked him for coffee and told him what I was up to. And he was like, dude, Josh, you have a really cool perspective with your clients. And I think at that time I had been doing my business for about 7 years. I was already at 6 figures and starting to scale. And he asked if I'd be willing to share some of that on the Elegant Themes blog as a blog author. So I was like, heck yeah, that's how I got my in with Elegant Themes. And I started writing on that. And then that's when the teaching bug really bit me. And then I started creating some layouts based off of page templates that I created. And that's how, Andrew, I ended up getting connected with Elegant Marketplace. And I think you had messaged me and you were like, Josh, have you ever thought about selling this for like, 10, 20 bucks?
I'm terrible. I'll just ask anyone to do
but
stuff.
it planted the seed for me to realize, like, wow, like I learned, and this was a different phase of my business mindset. I learned that I could show people how to create this, and a lot of people would just do that. They would create it themselves. But there was a whole nother market for people who wanted to save time and would just buy a $10 layout and then one click install it, and then boom, there you go. Sure. So that's what really changed the game for me, going from agency owner to suddenly getting into this world of product creator and teacher.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Before I've got one final question before we go for our mid-break, Josh. Bit of a downer, but I think we all learn from our mistakes the most. We probably don't think that way when they're happening, though. When you were running your agency, what were some of the 1 or 2 biggest mistakes that you made that you learned the most from, which you could share with the tribe if you're willing to do that?
Sure, happy to. Well, let me give you 2. I have kind of a funny one and a more serious one. The funny one is when I started my business, because I was in the band world, I put everything I did on my first business card. You can actually see this business card if you want. You can go to joshhall.co, joshhall.co/business card. Because I was in the band world, I was also doing drum lessons on the side. And I thought it would be a really smart marketing move to have web design, graphic design, and drum lessons all on my business card. So my first business card, and literally, again, you can see this if you want to see it, joshhall.co/business card. It said drum lessons on there. When I started getting real clients who were like construction businesses or local businesses, they liked me and they were interested, but they were like, why do you have drum lessons on here? And then it dawned on me, like, wow, I need to like keep my services to this industry. So I learned that early on. I also, the second part, I think a big blunder that I had early on is I just kept my rates so unreasonably low for way too long. And I know that's really common. And a lot of my students who I teach nowadays who are early on, they're just afraid to charge more. And I understand you can start lower, but you really do need to start making sure you raise your rates at your level as quickly as possible. And what I found out was when I bumped up my rates from $1,000 on average to like $3,000 or $4,000 for sites on average, this same amount of clients were still paying me. So I was kicking myself for 2 or 3 years for undervaluing myself, 2 or 3 times what I could have earned those first few years. So I guess to sum that up, articulating my services and having services that were way outside of what I should have on my card and in my services, and then just keeping my rates too low. It really did some damage for me early on, but it was, like you said, Jonathan, a live and learn. I learned from it, and now I teach people not to do that. No drum lessons on your web design card.
Well, maybe that's one of the reasons why they should join you, really, because on reflection, just to wrap up before we go for our break, Josh. I wasn't, because I've changed my attitude a little bit. I'm a slow learner, though. It's taken almost over 10 years. I think joining masterminds and joining a group led by somebody that's been in your shoes that you're trying to go is a really good idea. Obviously, you've got to be a bit careful which one you choose, but that's like anything in life, isn't it? You got to do your due diligence, haven't you? But I think it can really save, and I used to be quite negative about joining such groups and that, but my attitude's changed. So I think somebody looking to be a web designer, they probably would get enormous value by joining some of your offerings. We're going to go for our break. We'll be back in a few moments. We're going to be delving in a lot of subjects with Josh. It's been a great interview so far, and I've got my great co-host with me, Andrew. We'll be back in a few moments. We're coming back, folks. Want to point something else out. If you want to get the WP-Tonic weekly newsletter, and you should, all you have to do is go to the WP-Tonic/newsletter, and you'll be able to sign up for it. And what will you get for signing up? Well, you get an editorial from me about anything that's going on in the world of WordPress and tech, plus the panels, Friday shows, recommendations straight into your inbox. That's useful. Please sign up and join us. So, Josh, what do you think are some of the most important factors for somebody who's looking to start a web design business in 2022? I think the landscape over the past couple of years has really changed in quite a dramatic way. I don't know if you agree with that statement, and if you do, what have some of those changes been? And like I say, what are some of the most important factors that somebody should consider when they're thinking of going down that road? Only small questions, Josh.
No, I do. I agree. I think it's changed dramatically. I think obviously the pandemic has changed a lot about how businesses do things online. Well, first of all, that's changed the need for online web developers and designers. I mean, and this is one reason I'm so passionate about teaching. There is more opportunity now in web design than ever before. And I feel very confident over the next 10 to 20 years plus, it is going to just be like the growth for web designers and the need for web designers is going to be off the charts. Now, that's really exciting, but it also comes with another challenge. And that is what kind of goes back to what I talked about earlier. How do I kind of reel myself in and focus on what I want to do? Because again, the problem is, I think nowadays, the more specialized you are in one area, the better chances you have of really making a good 6-figure income as a web designer or as a small team. If you do everything and you're not very good at everything, it's going to be a little tougher to beat your competition or stand out with clients and do a really good job. Where if you really focus on a handful of things that you're really good at, I think it's really going to expedite the journey for a lot of folks. So I think nowadays the opportunity is bigger than ever. That is huge. I think another part of this, number two here would be to, again, solidify the services that you're really good at, that you like doing. If SEO is just terrible to you and you hate it, then partner with somebody. Don't do the SEO aspects, or just do the basics and partner with somebody to take the rest of that while you focus on design or client management. The last thing I'll say too that I think is really, really important nowadays is the more personal you can be with clients, the better. And not only will this help build the old-fashioned know, like, and trust that all clients want, what I've found is clients nowadays really just want a person to be their web guy or web gal. It kind of, I mean, I don't know when you guys got into web design, but there was this term in the late 90s called webmaster. And I feel like that's kind of coming back around. I really feel like there's a dawn of the webmaster again, to where clients are so burned out with digital agencies, and they're so leery of web designers for whatever reason, rightfully so sometimes. If you can be a trusted web design partner, their webmaster, you can literally have a client for life. You can have a client that's with you for years, and there's all sorts of value you can provide for them to get paid over and over and over again. The really cool thing about that is if you know your services and you get really good at a few things and you become that trusted person, now you don't have to get a new client every week. You can have a couple dozen clients and make 6 figures just by really working on the customer relationship with these, 20 some clients. That's one thing I'm really working on with students. And one thing I regret doing is I often work with one project and then said, okay, nice website, see you later. I wish I would have just kept on working with them and kept that relationship going, kept on offering value, and then have recurring services that you can offer, because
but then you have a course on that now. You have a course on recurring income. You had a course. You put it out quite a while ago, and I think what we've all become aware of in the web mastery world, if you like, is that if you can host a website, you can do some technical stuff. You can use other white label services to actually run your business for you while you're down the beach surfing or on the mountain skiing or just sunning yourself, whatever. And I think what I'm interested in knowing about you and your courses. I mean, I've been looking at your personal brand we've known each other for years now, but I've seen an increase in the polished personal brand of Josh Hall. Now that, from the stuff that you've got on your microphone, you've got a little box there, like a TV mic and everything like that. It's
called a mic flag, by the way. I had no idea what this was called. It's called a mic flag.
What did I? Now I do. Thank you for educating this very old man. But the point is that where you were saying you become the like, trust, and know people, the webmaster people. It's all about the personal brand as well. Mm-hmm. So within just looking at you and looking at your growth as a teacher and a person that is making 6 figures plus from your courses, one I want to know is how many people have you taught to do your to do the job that they want to do? What's the feedback that you're getting? Do these people come back and want more even on a mentoring or coaching level? Yeah. And how do you actually personally feel about teaching literally hundreds, maybe even thousands of people how to do what you used to do and their business?
I love it. I mean, what I'm doing now, basically, I've created this coaching business as if I were to coach, Josh from 10 years ago. Because I remember very vividly those first few years. I remember all the challenges I had, all the struggles I had, and I knew all the courses that I wish I would have known about and all the type of stuff I just needed to know to get going in web design fast. Sure. That's what I do now. So I'm coaching, myself from 10 years ago. So I think that being that I had been in the industry for well over a decade, that really gave me all the content I need to help people do the same thing. So I love teaching at scale. The other thing I love about what I'm doing right now is I love being in a global tribe. I never looked at a world clock until I started teaching people all over the world. Now, my world clock is the first app on my phone, because now I know I know that Australia is about to go through a time zone change. I never knew that before, but because I have members in my coaching community, I know when our calls are going to change. And it's really cool. You get to know other cultures, you get to know other personality types. There's a big difference with how people sell in the UK often versus how we sell in America. So it's pretty fascinating. I absolutely love that. I feel like I'm as an uncultured, boy from Columbus, Ohio. It really expanded my mind with people and personality types. So I love that aspect of it. As far as my business model, to your point, Andrew, I realized something that was a big problem for me when I started doing courses. I started creating a suite of web design courses that range from design to beginners courses to SEO, CSS, and then some business courses, one on maintenance plans, like you mentioned, which is recently revamped. It's a 2.0 version now.
Nice.
But I had one big problem. I would have students go through them. They would get amazing results. They would share that with me, but then they would disappear. And it was no fault of their own. But if you have a one-off program, they just disappear. And unless they were engaged with me in social media, or unless I personally reached out, if they had left me a testimonial or something, I didn't know. I didn't know how stuff was going. So that's one thing that led me to create a coaching community, a premium community, where people can get personal coaching from me, and we can have this awesome online community of web designers. So those are the two main aspects of my business now. I have my courses, which are all lifetime access programs that are deep dives into certain topics. And then people can go one course at a time if they want. They can get all my courses in a bundle. And then ideally they join my coaching community for coaching with me, and they get into this awesome web design community. And that's my big passion right now. And that's what I'm really ramping up here in 2022 is the online community side of things.
Yeah, I'm going to respond to some of the things you said at the beginning of your answer, Josh, in the bonus content, but I've got one final question before we wrap up the podcast part of the show. What's your thoughts about WordPress in general and how it fits in? Is it still, do you feel, the main tool that web designers utilize, or has its position deteriorated with the increase in SaaS projects like Squarespace, Duda? And when it comes to e-commerce, Shopify, where do you see WordPress? Is it still the core technology for the lot of the people that you're helping and consulting?
Yeah, it's a great question. We were just talking about this last week, actually, on our weekly Q&A in my community. I think the latest stats, and you guys might know this, I know there's a few different sites that report the stats of WordPress, but isn't it about 40, in between 40 or 46%? Latest
43%, and Elementor is 7.1% of that, just to let you know.
Okay, so WordPress is still, closing in on half the main sites of the internet. I think WordPress itself is still, the main tool that most people are using, and I still think it's going to be that way for a long time. However, over the past probably 2 years, I have seen a big influx in people using Squarespace and Shopify. And Webflow is also seeming to pick up a lot more traction. Now, what's interesting about this, though, is when I started teaching, I was so heavily into the Divi community that I really didn't know anybody outside of WordPress and Divi, and I just stuck right there. When I launched my podcast, which is more of a broad web design show, I think that's what really branched me out into the realm of just more web tools. And I have a YouTube channel now that is not Divi centric. I still have a lot of Divi tutorials because that's what I use. Jonathan, I know, you love Divi. So that's why I create Divi tutorials for folks like, I think I say that to say now I'm doing content that is
I love it, Josh. It's paid for my car, my holidays.
There we go. Yeah. So now, I think I'm branching out into more web design general kind of things where different tools, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of tool agnostic. However, it's a good point. Even we're joking about Divi, but there has been a big influx of Elementor users and Oxygen users and different themes rather than just Divi. I do see that. I see a lot of my students who are still primarily Divi, but maybe they're also using Elementor or a couple other themes. But I will say, word of warning, the more themes you use in your business, the more tricky things get because you have to keep up with these tools. It can be really costly if you're like, if you just use Divi for all of your client websites, you can have a handful of trusted add-on subscriptions and you're generally good to go. If you're using Elementor and Oxygen and a few others, you may need like, a dozen add-ons for all your different themes, and it can get costly and a little dangerous. So I generally say stick with 1 to 2 themes for all web designers, just to play it safe.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think the Webflow was almost a protest jump from a lot of WordPress people. They just went on to Webflow because, let's face it, it's a hosted situation. Now Elementor are almost going to a hosted situation like Squarespace, Wix, Shopify, all those kind of stuff. So, or they're trying to transition into that to be able to monetize the opportunities that hosting offers you. But I think you're right. If you stick with one theme, then you're all good. I know some guys that will only use X theme. That's it. That's because they know it inside and out, and they can do everything they do. Just a very quick last question, Jonathan. I'm sorry, we're going to run over time on this bit slightly.
Can you make it quick, because I don't want
I'll make it very quick, and Josh can answer it. It's a yes or no question. Do you think you will offer courses on anything other than Divi? I know that you've got.
No, I'm going to stick with. As far as technical stuff, I'll stick with Divi, but I am doing courses and content that's just broad-based to where it's theme agnostic. It doesn't, it's just more business principles, web design principles that aren't necessarily to one theme. Yeah, I just don't have the time to learn other themes right now.
That's great. We're going to wrap up the podcast part of the show, folks. Hopefully, I think Josh is going to stay on for a little while.
Yeah, I'm good.
I've got a response about what you said about Divi and my thoughts, and Andrew, I'll make Andrew laugh. It's been a great interview. You can watch the whole interview plus the bonus content on the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. Please go over there, watch the bonus content of this great interview, and also sign up for the YouTube channel. It really does help the show. So, Josh, how can people find out more about you and your great offerings, Josh?
You can just go to my website at joshhall.co. Like 95% of my content is free. So I've got podcast episodes there, tutorials, master classes you can jump into. And then if anyone has any questions, just contact me. You can go through my contact form. I don't get that many emails, so I'm always going to give somebody a personal response if they reach out to me. So be happy to help anybody out.
That's great. And Andrew, how can people find out more about some of your thoughts and what you're up to in the WordPress and Divi community?
You can get me on Twitter at Arnie Palmer, and you can find the Bertha.ai Facebook group. It's just search for Bertha.ai and you'll find a Facebook group. And of course, you can always find me somewhere on a podcast around the web.
Yeah. And I just want to say Bertha is one of the most interesting plugin solutions in 2022, and you need to go and have a look at it. I think I'll be nice to Andrew there. So there we are. And we're going to wrap up the podcast part of the show. We'll be back next week. We've got some really fantastic guests in the next couple of months. You're going to be amazed. Almost up to the quality of Josh, actually. But you're going to be blown away by some of our guests that have agreed to come on this show. We'll be back next week, folks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So, to respond to one of your answers, Josh, first of all, I think when it comes to Divi, I think the founder of Divi and the crew of Divi, so impressed with how they understood their target audience and how they positioned Divi. Because they really, because I think in every town of 25,000 plus, there's a couple of what I call designer web people. Not always, and I'm not trying to be sexist here, they tend to be ladies. They tend to go to the BNI group meeting, and their focus is helping small businesses that go to the BNI meeting, go to the Chamber of Commerce meeting. Their clientele are entrepreneurs themselves, small business owners, and they because of budget, they literally have to do everything for these clients because there isn't the budget to share out. And that's a bit of a problem because they end up being a generalist. They do the logo, they do the website, they do the flyer, they do the graphics for the van. That they are the one shop for their clientele in their town. The Divi knew there was an army because his background was from that background, and there's just an army of those. So my question is, do you agree what I've just outlined? And secondly, how do they then specialize? Because the budget normally won't allow them to specialize. How do they overcome that hurdle so they can attract clients that got bigger budgets?
I think you hit it, Jonathan, with where Divi, I don't know necessarily where it is now, but definitely when I got involved with it, it did kind of meet in the middle between a DIYer and a developer. There was the developers who much preferred custom code and much more of a light type of builder, whereas the DIYers didn't even know what HTML was. So they should not be messing with code. And Divi kind of met in the middle. So it was perfect for me, because I'm more of the creative design side, and now I like marketing and copy more than ever. I'm pretty dang good with CSS, but I'm not a coder. So I only had to do it as little as I needed to get stuff done with Divi. And it met me right where I needed to be. And I think a lot of my students were in that same position. We were more business owners than developers. So I think Divi was the perfect solution to help us create, sites for clients. Now, I don't know when Elementor came out. I don't remember, but to my knowledge, okay, because I started using Divi in 2014, and I hated it at first, but then I got to a point where I was choosing different themes for every site, and I was like, you know what? I think I could just use Divi for all of my sites. And once I got used to it and started saving templates, that was the game changer for me. So it really did kind of meet me right in the middle. And to your point, Jonathan, I think Elegant Themes has said from the very early on, their big term for all of their customer base was empowerment. They wanted to empower their entire customer base to use Divi, but also grow their web design business. So I think that's where really Divi was like a great tool for web design freelancers, just like myself.
Yeah,
I think
I think the founder and the team at Divi really, really understood what their target audience was and their real needs.
Well, I think
much better than a lot of other people in the WordPress community.
Well, there's a reason for that, Jonathan. Nick started coding. Nick started Elegant Themes when he was 15 and a half, still at high school. So he understood from a let's say a teenager's perspective of what everybody else wanted around it. So he built Elegant Themes, and there was a builder in Elegant Themes. Josh, you might remember this when you first started using. I used to use the Sky theme. That's all I used. That was my theme. And I used to use the builder that was in there because I was just a bit lazy. I didn't want to do code or anything like that. But the thing is Nick has grown up. I mean, what is he now? 37, 38 or something? He's still quite young. He grew up with the people that he's serving, right? So he's suddenly become, now he's like the coder and got all that kind of thing, sussed and doing everything. But he's got now 100+ staff, of which the majority are coders. And he now knows, and they've come from an agency background maybe, or a design background. Plus he has conversations face to face. He's very, very approachable. Josh will tell you this. I don't know whether you've met him at any work.
Yeah, he's super cool. Yeah, he's like the most chill,
super approachable. I had 2 hours of his time. That's like incredible, of talking to him, fighting to kick him and all this kind of stuff, because he was starting his own marketplace, and thanks for that. But what a lovely guy, but also hyper intelligent and also empathic because he knows his audience unbelievably well. Nathan as well, started off the blogging, started off the the educational side of it, and they're teaching people how, they're a page builder, right? They're teaching people how to use Gutenberg, because they know that that's what people want to learn. So
I wanted to give you my thoughts on that, by the way, because I wanted to hear what you guys thought about
that was linked to my next question, actually, Josh. So, how do you see Divi fitting? How do you see the Gutenberg juggernaut? How do you feel Divi is going to exist in the world of Gutenberg? Because I've got some strong feelings about it, but I don't want to. But I like to get your feelings how Gutenberg is going and how it fits in with Divi.
I don't think it's going to affect. I don't think people, I'll say it this way. I don't think people are going to choose to build sites as a whole and pages with Gutenberg over Divi, who are Divi users, because Divi is just so much more versatile and easy to use. I personally can't stand Gutenberg. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Some people like it, but the majority of my students hate it just as much as I do.
Can I ask you a quick question, following
Sure.
from that statement? Have you analyzed why you're feeling like that?
I just don't find it intuitive. And I'm not an early adopter with technology. I'm usually like the second wave. I'm not a late adopter, but I'm usually kind of right in the middle. So I really gave it a
Can I give you a quick answer why you feel that way?
Sure. You think it's because I use Divi?
No, well, kind of, but it's linked to what we just said, is that Gutenberg is developed by developers, right? And I've always had problems with the UX design element of it. I just don't think they invested enough time and energy into that. And there's consequences which are shown. When it comes to Divi, because what Andrew outlined and what you outlined, the founder and the team, they understood their target audience really, really well. And they built a product that was targeted at.
That's a good point. So I interviewed Kenny Singh, who is the one who actually created Divi with Nick. And this, I think this was episode 44, maybe on my podcast. But anyway, he said that's exactly how they created Divi. They literally like drew it out first. It came from a design aesthetic first, and then they coded around that. So the UX was like priority one. And Kenny, if you guys don't know him or know about his background, he worked for Google. And he was working with a lot of like UX stuff for Google. So that I think you're right. I think that's maybe why Divi had such a big impact initially. Was it was easiest to use from a UX standpoint. I felt like, Gutenberg. Do you guys know, are they officially still supporting the classic builder through the rest of 2022 and beyond? Because I mean, it's like a high percentage of people who still use the classic builder, right?
I don't know. Who knows? They changed. Sorry, Andrew.
Yeah, they are. And I just want to say, because I had a good chat with Kenny as well, because he was at Elegant Themes first. And then he went to, he either got attracted or headhunted to Google. Mm-hmm. And one of his main issues, and he shared it with me, so he's not going to see, but one of his main issues is, Google has always had a good UI and UX, right? But when he came in with his UI and UX ideas, which are great, like I'm not blowing smoke anywhere, but they are great. He found that Google, the engineers loved it, and the designers loved it, but the engineers went, huh? And that's the key, is that the Elegant Themes is design led, right?
Yeah.
Gutenberg is, we've said it, I'm repeating ourselves, is engineer led, right? So they haven't got this together. They haven't got, if Gutenberg can get a little bit more of a Kenny Singh kind of character.
Yeah, but isn't that what Divi and the owners of Divi see the opportunity? Because they seem to, I don't know if they publicly laid out a roadmap, or it seems to me that they plan to utilize, they are going to move to the block metaphor, but they plan to put their UX and their on top of it, so you get a much more nicer environment for the quasar, what I call the designer type, but it will still be compatible with the block and all the plugins that are going to build up in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I I don't know if they have a public roadmap out there, but I have heard that they're, and I know Nick had been on a podcast called Divi Chat. Like this was a while ago, but he said they were making very intentional efforts to keep up with Gutenberg and make sure Divi plays nicely with it and is compatible. But I mean, really,
mucking around with HTML and let's not forget that Divi's built on React as well. Gutenberg's built on React, so there's some compatibility issues as well as advantages there. So carry on, Josh. Nick knows where he's going.
I was just thinking, when you build a site with Divi, especially with the theme builder now, you can literally create all these blocks and layouts for different post types. The only time I use the WordPress editor is just for the actual content in a block, or if it's a blog post, it's just the text. I mean, you can, of course, add images in the classic editor, but it's clunky. So yeah, maybe you'll be able to use Gutenberg to add images to blog posts and stuff, but I don't even foresee using it that much. I'm going to be using the Divi builder overall as far as all my layouts, as opposed to using Gutenberg to lay out my site.
Yeah, just to finish off, and Nick, you go, Josh. It's kind of linked to the previous question. I think we went on a Divi dive there for understandable reasons, because both you and Andrew are passionate Divi users. But it's linked, the first part, about the smaller designers that are working with these smaller clients and how they migrate up. I personally feel that it's not really talked about, but I think those type of people have to use offshore labor. They have to use people that can specialize, but still they could offer the service to their client at a price that will be, because I found when I was in that market that a lot of these small, and it's all about value. I do understand the value proposition, but a lot of these small clients are extremely price sensitive. So for you to not be that generalist and to be able to get some specialists, you have to bring in some offshore people to work with you. That's the only way that I can see that you can build up a portfolio that will attract larger clients in your local community. Do you think I'm on the right track? And is that something you discuss in your courses?
Yeah, so I do have a business course that gets into that, and I'm actually going to be doing one this year in 2022 on scaling and getting into hiring and more high value kind of tiers. I think offshore type help will definitely help, just from a profitability standpoint, to be able to keep, some profit in the business, particularly if you're not good at coding and tech, then some of those options are the best. I mean, I have a developer who works on my site with me who's offshore. I mean, he's more close to US rates now, but it's still, it's much less than I would pay somebody stateside. So that can definitely help in that regard. But I do think there's a lot of different options now for people stateside in particular, or wherever you are, to be able to have a nice, profitable six-figure business with a very, very small team. Even if you can utilize templates, or like Andrew said, there's a lot of partners now. Like if you don't want to do the maintenance and hosting, you can partner with somebody and just tack on, $20, $30 a month to do that, whatever it is. And there's also a lot more. I think there's a lot more. Trying to look for the right word. Acceptability, is that a word? For subscription services. So we all are used to subscriptions now, from Disney Plus to, my razors are on subscriptions, my dog food's on subscriptions. Like, we're just used to subscription services now. So that also presents a really new opportunity, an exciting opportunity for web designers, because you can get people to these lower end clients. Maybe they're not interested in $4,000 one time, but maybe they're interested in $4,000 over a year. And then suddenly you can break that down, and you can do hosting and maintenance and do the website in phases and offer some more value in that. Maybe start with a template site just to kick the site off, but then add more value every month. That's the way really to nail and link in those low end clients, but still get them really good results and build that, lasting relationship.
That's fantastic. I think I'm going to wrap it up now. Josh needs to go off and build another course. So thanks, Josh. You have to come back later on in the year. I think it's been a fantastic interview, and we've got a lot of other stuff to discuss.
I'd be happy to. Let's do it. Yeah,
yeah.
But the end of 22 will be really exciting. So maybe we can recap some of what we talked about. And we'll see where Divi and Gutenberg is by the end of the year.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed the discussion, Josh. Like I say, we'll be back next week with another fantastic guest. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Thanks, Jason.